Hello, my dear students, and welcome back to Victory Batch. And I am your Diksha ma'am. So, today we are going to start with the chapter Chemical Control and Coordination. So, this is a very small but very important chapter from NEET point of view. So, without wasting any time, let's get started. So, what we are going to study in this chapter is only one thing, and that is endocrine glands. You heard it right, endocrine glands. So we are going to talk everything about these glands, what they are secreting and what their secretion is doing and how they are doing it, right? So what are endocrine glands? Endo means within, crine means secretion. So endo means within, endo means within, and crinin means secretion. So they are secreting something, but that secretion is present inside your body. It is present inside your body. So this gland is a ductless gland. If you remember, in the exocrine gland, we have these small ducts through which the secretions are poured outside. Whereas in endocrine gland, these ducts will be absent. These ducts will be absent, right? So how does their secretion will go to the target organ? For example, this is a target organ or target cell. How this endocrine gland, if it does not have any duct, how it will send its secretion to the target cell? It will send its secretion to the target cell through blood vessel. You know, every cell and organ of your body somehow receives blood. So what it is doing, it will give or pour its secretion into the blood vessel, and this is how it will reach into your target cell, right? And what their secretions are known as? The secretion is known as hormones, and these hormones are present inside of your body. They are not present outside. Or if I say, if we compare it with the duct one gland or the one with the ducts, that is exocrine gland, its secretions are always or somehow in some exocrine glands, the secretion can move outside of your body. For example, the salivary gland, the secretions are moving out of the body and you can take it out as well, right? Or if I talk about oil gland or sweat gland, it also comes outside of your body on your skin. But these are the glands of internal secretion because hormones will always remain inside your body. Okay, so that's why endocrine glands are also known as glands of internal secretion. Glands of internal secretion. Okay. So what are hormones? They are non-nutrient chemicals which act as intercellular messengers and are produced in trace amounts. Very important, first of all, these hormones, they are non-nutrient. What is non-nutrient? And first of all, what is a nutrient? We have done nutrients in digestion, right? And I have told you nutrient is something that you feed on and your body produce energy from that, right? But these are non-nutrient. You cannot metabolize them. So these cannot be metabolized, so you call it as non-nutrient. Second, it is acting as intercellular messengers. So hormones, sometimes they're also known as primary messengers because they are the one which are taking information from the cells of endocrine gland and giving it to the cells or the target cell. So it's like a intercellular. Inter means between two cells. So it's sending the information between two cells. So that's why you call it as intercellular messenger. It is produced in trace amount. Trace means very small amounts. Okay. Now what is its function? We'll talk about that shortly. But before that, what are the various endocrine glands in your body? Let's have a look on it. So as you can see here, guys, we have first in the brain, hypothalamus, pituitary and pineal gland. So there are three glands present in the brain: hypothalamus, pineal and pituitary. Because they are the part of the brain, and brain is a very important structure of nervous tissue, so all these three glands will be ectodermal in origin. What will be the origin of these three glands? Ectodermal in origin. So whatsoever glands you have in the brain, they are ectodermal in origin, right? Then if we move towards the neck, we have two glands here, thyroid and parathyroid. Just near the heart, we have thymus, and then we have pancreas in the abdominal area, and adrenal gland present above the kidneys. And then in the females, we have ovaries in the lower abdomen, and in the males, we have testes in the lower abdomen, right? So all these glands we have to study in this chapter. Apart from these glands, we will also be discussing about the other endocrine secretions by your various tissues. So this chapter is going to be very interesting, and you will get to know how your body is regulated by these chemicals. So you heard me right, regulation. So just like that, the neural system was coordinating and controlling your body activities. Just like that, your chemical system also controls and regulates the body activities. So two kind of controls are working inside your body to regulate your body functions. One, the neural, and second, the endocrine, the chemical system. So let's get started with the introduction part of this chapter. So if we'll study if you'll come across the NCERT of this chapter, the first paragraph says that the neural system and the endocrine system jointly coordinate and regulate the physiological functions in the body. So this is what we have discussed just now, that these two systems are basically coordinating all your activities, physiological activities, right? So no, what's the difference? The common thing is they are coordinating your body activities, that's for sure. But how they are different and how they're controlling the same function differently, let's have a look on that. So there is a difference between these two systems, of course, because the nervous system is made up of neurons and chemical system is made up of all the chemicals and the endocrine part, right? So how they are functioning differently? First of all, the nervous system have chemicals, and your endocrine system, it also have chemicals, but the name of the chemicals is different. The chemicals here in the nervous system are neurotransmitter, and here they are hormones. Neurotransmitters are also these kind of chemicals. Mostly they are made up of peptide, but hormones are of variety, right? And then what is a target site? Now, where does these chemicals go for performing its function or to regulate the body functions? They can stimulate the neurons and in fact the glands, like we have done in the autonomic nervous system. They can also go to the visceral organs and glands, and basically in the visceral organs like in heart and also in the glands. But these they can work on the complete body, even on your somatic cells, like they can function in your bones and everything, whereas their organs are quite limited. Okay, next, site of action is near. What is it? For example, if I say this is a neuron, so what will be here present in the axonal end? Synaptic vesicles will be present, and these synaptic vesicles will secrete neurotransmitter which will stimulate the adjacent neuron. But here the target organ is far away, like pancreas secrete insulin, and that insulin goes to liver, and liver is far away from the pancreas, right? It's not just present adjacent to it, just like in a micrometers different, like in the synapses, right? So here the target organ is near, here it is far away. Second, the onset of action is rapid. That means as soon as the neurotransmitter attached to the postsynaptic membrane, it will start performing its function, right? So it's quite quick, fine. But here these chemicals are very slow. First of all, they are dependent upon the blood system of the body. Imagine the blood will first go to the heart, and from the heart it will then get pumped in through the systemic circulation, then it will go to the liver. So it will take some time because we are dependent upon the blood. The blood will circulate and will send the hormones. So we say the onset of action can be slow, but duration of action here is very short. For example, if it has causes excitation in this neuron, and once the wave of impulse stops, everything will be stopped. So it will be for a little shorter duration. For example, this neuron now send information to the another one. So once it has sent information to the another one, this one will stop, like this one has already stopped, right? Or until or unless the impulse have been already arrived in the first one, or it is continuously arriving, fine. So here the function is for longer duration. It will keep on functioning for a number of, in fact, days as well. Amount of chemical, here we need it in the high concentration, but they are low or required in the trace amounts. All right. I hope this is pretty clear to everyone. That's the difference between these two systems, and this is how they're controlling you and me and everyone. Okay. All right, guys. So let's get started with the first gland, and that is hypothalamus. So, hypothalamus, where it is present? It is present in the basal portion or the base of the diencephalon, if you remember. It is present at the it forms the basal part of diencephalon. Since it is a part of nervous system, it will be ectodermal in origin. Ectodermal in origin. So it's a connection between neural and endocrine, right? So it's a connection between neural and endocrine system because it's just like of a part of a brain. It has centers like thirst center, it controls circadian rhythm, it controls body temperature, it's a thermostat, it also controls emotions. But because it's an endocrine body, it will also secrete hormones. So it will secrete hormones. It will secrete hormones. All right. So as you can see, this portion is hypothalamus. This portion is pituitary gland, and both these are different glands, and they're connected to each other via this stalk-like structure. You call this as infundibulum. What do you call it as? Infundibulum. So infundibulum is a stalk-like structure which will connect hypothalamus with the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland have two portions, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is also known as adenohypophysis. Adenohypophysis. Whereas posterior pituitary is also known as neurohypophysis. Okay, now, so because hypothalamus is a part of neurons, so it will be formed of a lot of neurons also, right? So that's true. But some neurons, they have been modified. They have been modified in hypothalamus. Some neurons, they have been modified and they started secreting something. So you call them as neurosecretory cells. What do you call it as? Neurosecretory cells. In the portion where the normal neurons are present, they are controlling the neural function. But the endocrine portion of hypothalamus have neurosecretory cells. These neurosecretory cells, they secrete the hormones. So whatever you are looking at, they are neurosecretory cells. So there are certain neurosecretory cells present which are shorter in size, and there are some which are very longer in size. Okay, they are larger in size. So the one which are larger in size, their axonal ends are basically present in the posterior pituitary. Their axonal ends are basically present in the posterior pituitary. So these nuclei, the collection of cytone. Nuclei is what? Collection of cytone. So these nuclei, they will secrete the hormones. These hormones traveling through these axon will get stored in the posterior pituitary. They will get stored in the posterior pituitary. So we say that hypothalamus secretes two types of hormones. One hormone which will be secreted by the hypothalamus and they will travel towards the axon and they will get stored in the posterior pituitary, right? Second type, we have these hormones which will be secreted by hypothalamus and they will remain in the hypothalamus, but they will control the anterior pituitary. They will control the anterior pituitary, right? For example, I said these nuclei, they will secrete the hormones, they will move towards the posterior pituitary and they will get stored here. Now, what are these hormones? Oxytocin and ADH, right? Oxytocin and ADH. Second are the hormones which are secreted by these nuclei. They're secreted by these nuclei and they are what? They are inhibiting and releasing hormones. Inhibiting and releasing hormones. Inhibiting and releasing hormones are the one which will control anterior pituitary. So I'm writing AP to the anterior pituitary. Okay, they will control anterior pituitary. So how does they control? For example, if I say the anterior pituitary is connected to the hypothalamus via some blood vessel. via some blood vessel, and that forms your hypophyseal portal system. We have discussed this in the circulation chapter also. So here hypophyseal portal system's blood vessels are present, which are connecting the hypothalamus with the anterior pituitary. So now what will happen? It is secreting two type of hormones. Okay, imagine this is an inhibitory hormone, the pink one, and imagine the green one is a releasing hormone. Okay, for example, if the green one hormone goes to the anterior pituitary, this will lead to the formation of hormone, and anterior pituitary will release more hormone, right? But if this pink one inhibiting hormone comes to the anterior pituitary, then anterior pituitary will be inhibited and it will no longer produce its hormone. Let me just give you an example. Like I say, anterior pituitary have a hormone known as growth hormone. Okay, growth hormone is a hormone that leads to the growth of your body, and it is secreted by anterior pituitary. But its secretion is controlled by hypothalamus. How? If hypothalamus secrete inhibiting hormone, the anterior pituitary will no longer be secreting growth hormone. If hypothalamus is secreting releasing hormone, anterior pituitary will now can be able to secrete its growth hormone. So all the hormones, mostly hormones, they are under the control of the hypothalamus. Which hormones? The hormones of anterior pituitary. What about the posterior pituitary? These are already the hormones of hypothalamus, but they got stored in the posterior pituitary. All right. Okay. So that's about the hormones of hypothalamus. So hypothalamus secrete two types of hormones. One are the hormones stored in posterior pituitary, and second are the inhibiting and releasing hormone. Inhibiting and releasing hormones. Okay. Now, what are the name of the nuclei that secrete oxytocin and ADH? So they are proventriculus. Yeah, these also have name. These nuclei, they also have name, and supraoptic. The oxytocin is secreted by proventriculus, and supraoptic, it release ADH. Okay, so these are collection of two different collection of nuclei. So yes, in your brain a number of nuclei present, and yes, they have been named as well. All right, guys. So let's see how does or what are the various hormones present in the or are secreted by anterior pituitary, and for that what are the inhibiting and releasing hormones which are secreted by the hypothalamus. Okay, so whatever I'm underlining in pink color, they all are the hormones of pituitary. Okay, anterior pituitary. All right, so TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. This is one hormone secreted by anterior pituitary, stimulating hormone. Okay. GH is growth hormone. This is the second hormone of anterior pituitary. Prolactin is the another hormone secreted by anterior pituitary. Adrenocorticotropin, ACTH, is also secreted by the anterior pituitary. MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone, is also secreted by the pituitary, anterior pituitary. Apart from that, there is one more inhibiting and releasing hormone. Let me just write it on the next page, and that is GnRH. GnRH is secreted by hypothalamus, and it controls the release of LH and FSH. Okay, anyways, let's read this one. So if I say my hypothalamus is secreting TRH. So it will now go to the anterior pituitary and ask the anterior pituitary to release TSH. Okay, because this is the hormone of anterior pituitary. If my hypothalamus secrete GHRH, so there is a fine line. This is GHRH, okay, and this one is GnRH. So most of you get confused in the exam, or you do not read it carefully. So N and H, they are very small. N will always be in a small letters. H will be in the capital letter. So this is a releasing hormone for growth hormone. So if hypothalamus is secreting GHRH, so anterior pituitary can release GH. But if hypothalamus is secreting GHIH, which is somatostatin. Now, GH will not be, it cannot be released. Okay. Now, if hypothalamus is secreting PRH, prolactin releasing hormone, anterior pituitary can secrete the prolactin. If it is secreting PIH, which is equivalent to dopamine, then prolactin will never be released. For example, I say prolactin helps in the formation of milk in the mammary glands. So who produces milk? The pregnant woman, or I say the woman who has given birth to the baby. But non-pregnant female do not release prolactin. The reason is because hypothalamus is secreting this hormone. Okay. Now, adrenocorticotropic hormone releasing hormone will help in the release of ACTH. MRH, MIH, it will secrete MSH or it will inhibit the secretion of MSH. Just like that, gonadotropin hormone. The full form of this hormone is gonadotropin releasing hormone. So this is secreted by hypothalamus, and this will lead to the release of LH and FSH. LH and FSH, they are collectively known as gonadotropin. Gonads are testes and ovaries, right? And tropin means growth. So they lead to the growth of gonads. So collectively they are known as gonadotropins. And this hormone leads to the release of gonadotropins. So that's why its name is gonadotropin releasing hormone. Fine, guys? Okay, so from here you get an introduction for the hormones of the pituitary. Do not worry, let's move further and talk about the next gland, that is your favorite, pituitary gland. So now let's get started with the pituitary gland. So the another name of a pituitary gland is hypophysis. What its name is? Hypophysis. So where it is present in sella turcica. If you remember, we have done a small depression present in a sphenoid bone in your skull, and the name of that depression is sella turcica, right? So it is present in that cavity. So it is present in sella turcica. Turcica of sphenoid bone. And as you know, because it is in the brain, so it will also be ectodermal in origin. Fine. And just we have discussed that hypothalamus is attached to the pituitary gland via the stalk-like structure known as infundibulum, right? So this portion is the adenohypophysis or anterior pituitary, and this portion is posterior pituitary or neurohypophysis, right? So this is posterior pituitary or neurohypophysis. Neurohypophysis. Fine. And this portion is anterior pituitary, also known as adenohypophysis. Right? Now, not the entire pituitary is responsible for the secretion of hormones. There are certain areas present in the pituitary which have cells which can secrete the hormones. For example, here we have one area known as pars distalis, and adjacent to this is present pars intermedia, right? Just like that, we have pars nervosa area of the posterior pituitary. So these are certain areas which contain cells, and these cells have hormones. Like pars nervosa stores the hormone oxytocin and ADH, whereas this portion is pars distalis that secretes the all the hormones of anterior pituitary. Like what hormones? Like ACTH, like growth hormone, like prolactin, like TSH, and like LH and FSH. So all these hormones, they they are secreted by this area of your anterior pituitary. Fine. Now this area, what is its name? Its name is pars intermedia. Pars intermedia is fused with the pars distalis, and it secretes the hormone MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone. What are melanocytes? Melanocytes are these cells of your skin. Okay. These are the cells of your skin, and they secrete a pigment known as melanin. and that pigment gives you the color. The person who have more melanin or more melanin secreted by melanocyte, the color of that person will be darker. Who do not have a lot of melanin, their color will be light. Like foreigners, one of the US and Europe and all, they have less melanin in them. That's why they are so white in color. Whereas us, we have a lot of melanin in us, so that's why we look like a little tan, right? And Africans, they have more melanin in their skin, so they are like a little darker in their skin tone. Fine. So this melanocyte stimulating hormone, it helps in the secretion of melanin pigment by stimulating melanocyte, and these are present in the dermis of skin by, all right, where does it go, anyways, by stimulating melanocytes. All right, guys. Okay. So now let's talk about the hormones of posterior pituitary first. So what are they? All right. Again, what's going on? Anyways. So what are the various hormones of posterior pituitary? So posterior pituitary or the neurohypophysis does not have its own hormones. So we call it as like it's not a true endocrine gland. Why? Because it's not secreting its hormone. It's just storing the hormones of the hypothalamus, right? So it's not a true endocrine gland. Not a true endocrine gland. Why? Because it does not produce its own hormone, it only stores the hormones. Now, what are the hormones stored? One is oxytocin, another is ADH or vasopressin. First of all, we'll discuss about the vasopressin, because the vasopressin is a hormone which we have already discussed in the chapter, the excretory products and its elimination. Okay, all right. So, all right. Okay. So, if you know about oxytocin, if you already know about oxytocin, it's good. But if not, we'll be discussing in detail here. But we will also be discussing this in class 12th. Okay. This one we have already discussed in the excretory products and elimination chapter. Fine. So, if you know about ADH, what is its function? It prevents water loss. It prevents water loss or diuresis. Okay, so diuresis is formation of dilute urine. So what this hormone does, it goes to the distal parts of your tubules and asks these tubules to reabsorb a lot of water, right? So it will causes reabsorption of water from distal tubules. All right. Okay. So let's move further and talk about the oxytocin. So what about oxytocin, guys? What about oxytocin? Oxytocin is also known as milk ejecting hormone. Milk ejecting hormone. And it is also known as birth hormone. You heard it right, birth hormone. So the mammary glands produces milk. And the milk is produced under the influence of hormone prolactin, but it is released from the mammary gland with the help of hormone oxytocin. So which one makes the milk is prolactin, which one releases the milk is your milk ejecting hormone oxytocin. So it helps in the release of milk, and you also call it as milk let down. All right. Whereas birth hormone, why it is a birth hormone? Because it causes contraction of uterine muscles. Uterine muscles during childbirth. You all know during childbirth, the fetus is present, or that baby is present in the mother's womb, in the uterus of the mother. Okay. So when these uterine muscles they contract, the baby will come out. So who is responsible for that contraction of the muscles? Who will stimulate that? That will be your oxytocin. So that's why you call oxytocin as milk ejecting hormone and birth hormone. All right. Okay. Moving further to the hormones of anterior pituitary. We'll start with the growth hormone first. So growth hormone is a hormone which have a target cell, that is your entire body. That means it can bind to every cell of your body. Fine. So what is its function, guys? Its function is to cause the growth. If we say we are growing and we have, we are increasing in height, for that hormone, growth hormone is responsible. And then increase in blood sugar is also one of a function of the growth hormone. It will make sure that blood sugar should be higher or the sugar will be higher in the blood, so that the sugar can go to entire body parts or body organs, right? So if the blood sugar is low, that means the entire sugar has been taken by the liver. But if it inhibits the liver to not to take the glucose, so the glucose or the sugar will go to the entire body cells and lead to its growth. And this effect, increase in blood sugar, is also known as diabetogenic effect. Diabetogenic effect. This is what happened in diabetes as well. Then, what are the disorders associated with the growth hormone? First disorder is gigantism. So, it occurs due to oversecretion of growth hormone before puberty. If someone before puberty have excessive secretion of growth hormone, the height may increase like up to sometimes 7 to 8 feet. So, that's a case of gigantism. But if there is under secretion, that means less secretion of growth hormone before puberty, the person's height can be low, and that is dwarfism. You know, those people which have very small height, they are known as midgets of dwarfs, they have dwarfism. Then we have acromegaly. Here we have over secretion of growth hormone after puberty. This usually occurs sometimes in old age, and there is increase in size of the internal organs as well. If the size of internal organs it increase, it can lead to a lot of diseases. Let me give you an example. Just like that, if the growth hormone increases, that may increase the size of heart, reducing its pumping activity, and hence a person can die due to cardiac arrest, right? So acromegaly, it can be fatal if not detected, and in many cases it is not detected at all, because you will never get to know whether you have high growth hormone. You have never even imagined that you may have high growth hormone, and you cannot detect that your heart size is increasing, right? So these are the disorders related with the growth hormone. Let's talk about the other hormones of anterior pituitary. Prolactin, like I have said, it will lead to the growth of mammary glands and formation of milk, whereas milk release will be done by oxytocin. Like, it will tell the mammary glands to produce the milk, but when oxytocin will come, the milk will come out from the mammary glands. Then thyroid stimulating hormone, it will stimulate the thyroid gland, and it will ask the thyroid gland to secrete the hormone, which is the thyroid hormone. Then we have ACTH. It will synthesize and secrete steroid hormones, and these are the hormones from adrenal gland. And adrenal gland have two areas, adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. So it particularly goes to adrenal cortex, not medulla. Why? That you will get to know when we will study adrenal gland. Fine? Alright, next. Next, we have two hormones, LH, which is luteinizing, and FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone. They are collectively known as gonadotropins. Okay. Now, in male and female, both functions differently. Like, this is female and this is male. Similarly, follicle stimulating hormone works differently in females and in males. Let me start it with the follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone, it helps in spermatogenesis in the males. Okay, this is for male, and this sign is always for female. You must have seen in the toilets as well, okay, on the doors of toilets. So here's spermatogenesis. What is spermatogenesis? Formation of sperm. So if a male have FSH, it will help in the formation of the male gamete, that is sperm. In the female, what does FSH does? It causes growth of ovarian follicles. Growth of ovarian follicles. Now, what are ovarian follicles? In females, in female, a small structures are present which have an oocyte or a cell inside it, which is a female gamete, which will form, or later on it will become egg, right? Or we can say, if this is oocyte, which is a female gamete, in female it is not left alone, unlike that of the sperm, but it is surrounded by a number of follicular cells. And this is the structure which you call it as ovarian follicle. This follicle, it has to get mature if this oocyte have, or if this oocyte have to convert it, or it needs to get converted into egg, right? So this ovarian follicle, in the presence of FSH, it gets mature, it gets converted into mature follicle, and the oocyte in that will become egg someday. All right. So this maturation process, the growth or maturation of these ovarian follicle, it occurs with the help of hormone FSH. Fine. Okay. Now, once the mature follicle is formed in the female, this follicle is present inside the ovary. It has to come out of the ovary, right? If this is the ovary of a female, this is how the follicles are developing. Once this mature follicle is formed, which is known as Graafian follicle, the mature follicle is also known as Graafian follicle. Once this mature follicle or Graafian follicle, GF, I am writing GF here, GF doesn't mean girlfriend, it means Graafian follicle, okay. Once it is formed, it will get rupture and it will release this oocyte with some follicular cells. And the rest of the portion of this Graafian follicle will get converted into corpus luteum. And this rupture of the follicle is known as ovulation. And this ovulation takes place with the help of hormone LH. So the rupture of Graafian follicle is known as ovulation, and this takes place in the presence of luteinizing hormone in females. Okay, so that's the fate of a mature follicle, that someday it will rupture and it will release the main portion, that is oocyte, which will then become egg, and rest of the portion will become corpus luteum. So this is what LH does in the female. What does it do? It will causes rupture of Graafian or mature follicle. Rupture of mature follicle. And that mature follicle or the rupture of mature follicle is known as ovulation. Fine. Now in males, what does it do? It goes to a certain type of cells known as Leydig cells. They are present in testes only. Okay, what are testes? They are the organs. They are the male sexual organs. So testes have cells known as Leydig cell or interstitial cell. LH will bind to those cells and ask those cells to secrete hormone or androgen. So it will lead to the formation of androgen. Formation of androgen. So by stimulating which cells? Leydig cells. So Leydig cells are the cells in the testes which secrete hormones. Leydig cell or interstitial cells of testes. So that's the function performed by these two gonadotropins. Let's move further and talk about these questions. The posterior pituitary gland is not a true endocrine gland because it provided with a duct, it only stores and releases hormone. It is under the regulation of hypothalamus, it secretes enzyme. Okay, let's start it from the first one. It is not with the duct. If it would be with the duct, it would be exocrine gland. But we are considering in endocrine. So yes, it is ductless. So that's not a reason. It only stores and releases hormone. This is absolutely a reason. Second, it is under the regulation of hypothalamus. So you must be thinking, ma'am, this is true. Why not? This is the answer. Because anterior pituitary is also under the control of hypothalamus. So can we call that also not a true endocrine gland? No, it's a true endocrine gland because it produces its own hormones. But it does not secrete enzyme, it secretes hormones. So answer is 3. Next. Dash acts mainly at the kidney and stimulate reabsorption of water and electrolyte by the distal tubule and thereby reduce loss of water through urine. That means it is preventing diuresis, that is ADH. Vasopressin, 3rd. Next. Find the incorrect with respect to hormone. They are secreted by exocrine glands. They are intercellular messenger. They are non-nutrient and they are produced in trace amount. So this sentence is incorrect. So answer is 1. Okay. Next. Which of the following hormone stimulates the release of FSH and LH? GH is a growth hormone. No, it is the hormone of pituitary. It cannot regulate others. GHIH is inhibitory hormone for growth hormone. GHRH is a releasing hormone for growth hormone. And GnRH is the answer. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. It causes the release of LH and FSH. Which are the gonadotropins? Secreted by anterior pituitary. Next. Find the incorrect statement. The pituitary gland is located in a bony cavity called sella turcica. True. The posterior pituitary is under the direct neural regulation of hypothalamus. This is also true. The hypothalamus is a basal part of diencephalon forebrain. This is also correct. Oversecretion of growth hormone stimulates abnormal growth of the body leading to dwarfism. No. Undersecretion causes the dwarfism. Oversecretion causes the gigantism. So answer to this question, guys, will be 4. We have to find the incorrect one. So now we are going to start with a very little small gland known as the pineal gland. Why it has a name pine in it? Because it is the size of a pine cone. And where it is present? It's present on the dorsal side of the forebrain, and it secretes the hormone melatonin. If you remember, we have done diencephalon. And there I have told you, if this is thalamus, above thalamus is present epithalamus, and down there is present a gland known as pineal gland. Right? So pineal gland is present in the forebrain. What part? Ventral or dorsal? It is present in the dorsal part. So this is a ventral side. This is the dorsal side. It's present in the dorsal side. And what is the hormone? Melatonin. If we talk about chemically, this hormone is made up of amino acid. It is amino acid derivative. It's made up of amino acid. Now, what is the function performed by this very small little gland, but very important gland? Let's talk about the functions. The pineal gland is located on the dorsal side of forebrain. Pineal secrete the hormone melatonin. First, what is the important role? It plays a very important role in regulation of 24-hour diurnal rhythm of our body. For example, it helps us to maintain the normal rhythms of sleep and wake cycle, body temperature. All right. What if I say your body is functioning in the form of a cycle, just like your clock? Yes? Just like in clock, there is a timing, and that moves and repeat itself. For example, if I say every day there will be 12 p.m. in the noon, so it's a kind of a cycle. Okay, so yes, your body also works in a cyclical manner, and if this cyclical manner is disturbed, a lot of functions, physiological functions, will be disturbed. You know why earlier people used to say that one should sleep early and wake up early? One should not, get awakened up too late in the night. There is a reason. Because we are diurnal organisms. What are diurnal organisms? Diurnal are organisms that are active during day. So when human evolution took place, at that time when humans were formed, there was no electricity, no artificial lights. So all the animals, what they used to do, they when the sun comes up, they used to get active and do their activities, and when the sun goes down, they used to get literally inactive and they sleep. This was how our body was adapted. Okay, and this is how nature have made us. But by use of artificial lights and so, we have disturbed our cycle, but our body have the habit of getting into that cycle. Okay, so what happened whenever you use laptops or phone, or you are in the artificial light for longer duration during the night, your melatonin hormone gets inhibited. When it gets inhibited, or if melatonin is not produced, you will never get sleep. Okay, that's why never use phone at night. It will disturb your sleep and wake cycle. One example, you must have heard of some people, or in fact the elders in your house, like your parents or your grandparents, they have a proper cycle of sleep and wake. Sometimes they get waken up 4 o'clock or 5 in the morning without any alarm clock. Why? Because their body is acting as an alarm clock, and they have a cycle. They have a cycle by which that cycle, day and night cycle or sleep and wake cycle, their body is functioning in a particular manner. Okay, so this is a hormone. If there is more melatonin in your body, then you will sleep. If there is less melatonin, you will not sleep. And when there will be less melatonin? When there is more light. More light, less melatonin. That's why during noon you will not get a lot of sleep, because the sun is up and there is a lot of light. Now you must be thinking, ma'am, but we can sleep easily, right? That's not the sleep and wake cycle, that is your laziness. Anyways, let's move further. Let's move further and talk about the other functions performed by this. Okay, it also controls the body temperature. So your body temperature is also in the form of cycle. What? Absolutely correct. Whenever if you detect your body temperature in the early morning, it will be lower. But if you will detect it in the noon, it will be a little higher. So our body temperature also works in cycles. Yeah, I've told you a fact today. In addition, melatonin also influences metabolism, pigmentation, you heard it right. The secretion of melanin pigment is done by MSH, that we have done. But its dispersion, that means, dispersing it in the skin, is done by melatonin. Okay, secretion, that it will tell the cell to secrete, that's MSH. But dispersing is done by melatonin. The menstrual cycle as well as the defense system. So if your this sleep and wake cycle is disturbed in the females, they can also have a disturbed menstrual cycle. Second thing, even if a male or a female, if the menstrual cycle is not in a male, sorry, if in a male, or even if in a female, if the sleep and wake cycle is disturbed, the immune system can also go down. Fine. So see how important is to, when we were in these schools in the lower grades, there we have some moral science lectures, right? Their teachers used to teach us wake up early and sleep at night. There was also a line that early to bed, early to rise makes a person happy and wise. If I'm not wrong, please correct me. Okay, if I am wrong, then please correct me. What's going on with me? I'm so sorry. Maybe my sleep and wake cycle is disturbed today, right? Okay, anyways, let's talk about the other gland, that's a thyroid gland. So where is thyroid gland present? First of all, it is the largest endocrine gland. It's the largest endocrine gland. The largest gland of your body is your liver, but endocrine gland is your thyroid gland. Okay, where it is present around trachea. You heard it right, around your windpipe. It is present around trachea. It's H shape or butterfly shaped. H or butterfly shaped. So now let's talk about the diagrams, which are very important. So you can say this is a ventral side diagram. This is a ventral side. Okay, and this is a dorsal side. So if you'll see through the ventral side, it is H shape. You can see here two large lobes are present, and they're connected by this portion which is made up of connective tissue. This portion which is made up of connective tissue, you call it as isthmus, or you can also see it here. This portion, I'm writing it here. This is known as isthmus. An isthmus is made up of connective tissue. It joins two lobes of your thyroid gland. Okay. So if you'll see through the ventral side, you will see it in this manner. But if you'll see the dorsal side, you will also see these yellow color four round small structures which are parathyroid gland. They are present on the thyroid gland, but there is no anatomical or physiological connection, right? If, for example, this is thyroid gland, this is present like this. So if I take it out and I'll show you in this manner, I can see four yellow color lobes, short, small lobes. What are these? They are the another gland, that is a parathyroid gland, but they are not at all connected to the thyroid gland. They're just lying above it. They are just lying above it. Okay. All right. So if I see the internal structure, if we'll see the internal structure of the thyroid gland, you can find these small round structures known as follicles. What do you call it as? Follicles. So this is like one thyroid follicle. One thyroid follicle. Inside this thyroid follicle are present follicular cells. What are present? Follicular cells. right? And inside the lumen of it is present this solution which is known as colloidal solution or colloid, right? And these cells are follicular cells. These follicular cells secrete the hormone. It secrete the hormones. And what are these hormones? T3 and T4. T3 and T4. T3 is triiodothyronin. T4 is tetraiodothyronin. Okay, I hope you can read it nicely. This is triiodothyronin. This is tetraiodothyronin. T4 is also known as thyroxine. Why this is known as thyroxine? Why T3 is not known as thyroxine? Because T4 is high in amount in blood. So if you'll see the blood sample of a person as comparison to the T3, the amount of T4 will be more. Now, why they are known as triiodo and tetraiodo? Because these are iodinated hormones. That means they have iodine. They are iodinated hormones. Okay, and in the colloid, T3 and T4 both are present, and then they are released in the blood. So, for example, T3 and T4 are present here and they are attached with the iodine. The function of iodine in the hormone is that this iodine will help in the movement of the hormone across the cell. Imagine we have a hormone and it does not have iodine. The hormone will keep on get collected here and it will not be able to release. So iodine help them to transport across the cells and help them to get released from the colloid in the blood vessel. Like here is a blood vessel. So if T3 have or T4 have to move, for example, this is T4. Okay, let me just make it. This is T4 and T4 have 4 iodine. Okay, now with the help of iodine, this T4 can easily move across the cell. Imagine if T4 does not have iodine, it will not be able to move. On rather, another thing or another component apart from the iodine will be accumulate here, and the size of thyroid gland increases. And this is what happened in the goiter. You heard me right? Goiter. Okay, all right. So what's the function of the iodine in the iodinated hormone? Iodine helps in transport. It helps in transport. Okay, all right. Now, in these spaces, in interstitial spaces, some cells are present here, like these cells. These cells are known as parafollicular cells. Parafollicular cells, also known as C cells. These cells, they secrete another thyroid hormone, and that is calcitonin or thyrocalcitonin. Calcitonin or thyrocalcitonin. And this hormone has a very important role in calcium regulation. It reduces blood calcium and phosphate level. So that's why you call it as hypocalcemic and hypophosphatemic hormone. All right. So what is the function of, sometimes you forget this hormone, but it's also the hormone secreted by thyroid gland, and that's thyrocalcitonin. What's its function? It reduces blood calcium level. Now, what are the functions of your thyroxine? Let's see. First of all, it plays a very important role in the regulation of basal metabolic rate. If any person have higher metabolic rate, that person will be very slim. If any person who have lower metabolic rate, it will be fatter. Right, so that's why some people say, na, even if we drink water, we get fattier, just like me. And there are certain people who even eat a lot of ghee, butter, and so they are very slim. You know, you have seen some of your friends, they're eating so much, but they're so much slim. And like us, we are like very fat. You know, sometimes it's very bad. So reason is metabolism. So eat all those substances that will increase your metabolism. Okay, these hormones also support the process of red blood for cell formation. So they also helps in erythropoiesis. What is erythropoiesis? Red blood cell formation. Thyroid hormones control the metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, and fats, because if the carbohydrate is broken down, then it will give you more energy. Fat is broken down, it will give you more energy. If the fat is not broken down, it will get deposited and you will get fat. Then maintenance in water and electrolyte balance is also influenced by thyroid hormone. So all these functions are of your thyroxine, not of calcitonin. Okay. Now let's see the disorders related with this. All right, I don't know what's wrong with this. Every time I do, it does not support it. Okay, anyways, disorders. So what can happen with a hormone? What can happen with a hormone? Either, guys, either the level of hormone will decrease in your body or it may increase in your body. Only one of the two things can happen, right? Either the hormone decreases, there is decrease in the thyroxine level, or either it can increase. Okay, so now the disorder where there is increase in thyroxine level, you also call it as hyperthyroidism. And whenever there is low thyroxine, you call it as hypothyroidism. In hypothyroidism, we have three diseases. First is simple goiter. Second, we have myxedema. And third, we have cretinism. So all these are the disorders that can occur if there is less level of thyroxine, but the reasons are different. But always in all these three disorders, the person will have low thyroxine. Then we have hyperthyroidism. There we have two disorders. Either there is a cancer of thyroid gland, and second, okay, what's wrong with this? And second is exophthalmic goiter, also known as Graves' disease. Okay, all right. So first of all, what happened in the simple goiter? As I've told you, iodine is the one that will allow the transport of the hormone. And if iodine is not there, the hormone will get accumulate in the colloid and it will increase in size. So this is what happened in the simple goiter. It occurs due to deficiency of iodine. So whenever there is deficiency of iodine in diet, the hormone will not be produced properly and colloid will be having a large amount of hormone, but that is not a true hormone because it does not have iodine. It's just the amino acid part. Your this T3 and T4, they're made up of amino acid, and amino acids are attached with the iodine. So only amino acid part will be there and it will keep on accumulating. So that's why the people have swollen neck in goiter. They have swollen neck. Okay, myxedema and cretinism, both are the case of low level of hypothyroidism. C for cretinism and C for children. This is the one that occurs to children and this is the one that occurs to adults. Now, if it occurs in children, that can be a cause that a mother who is pregnant, for example, if a female is pregnant and she have myxedema, she have low level of thyroxine. So thyroxine plays a very important role in tissue differentiation. One of a function of thyroxine is tissue differentiation, and differentiation is a very important step in formation of fetus. If female does not have thyroxine, tissue differentiation will not take place and the baby's organ will not be completely formed. As a result, this baby will be having the abnormal body and there will be less growth in the brain. Okay, all right. Maybe the eyes, they have squint, the complete body is not completely formed, right? Or we can say low IQ is there, All these things can happen. In case of myxedema, which occurs in adult, what happened in this case? It occurs usually to the females more, and female they have, you know, swollen body, right? What happened? Because as I have told you, thyroxine also helps in maintaining electrolyte balance. If there is no thyroxine, electrolyte balance will not be maintained, and tissues will get swollen, right? So here the female face edema. From there we got the word myxedema, that is swollen tissues. So any female who have hypothyroidism, they are little fattier, right? Because they have swollen tissue, and the electrolyte balance have not been maintained. All right, okay. Then if I talk about the hyperthyroidism, maybe the cancer has been started in the thyroid gland, and that leads to the excessive production of thyroxine. Second, very important, is exophthalmic goiter. Graves' disease, it is an autoimmune disorder. Autoimmune disorder. In this disorder, there is more level of thyroxine in the body. As a result, the person is thinner, remains confused, and sometimes can also get tremors. For example, shaky hands, and, you know, always having sweats and all. So this is what happened in the exophthalmic goiter. Okay, all right. What is an autoimmune disorder? First of all, it's a disorder where antibodies are formed that will attack your follicular cells. Okay, so in this one, antibodies attaches to follicular cells. All right, okay. All right. So there is one more symptom of this exophthalmic goiter, that is bulging eyes. That is bulging eyes. Right? So the word exo means outside, ophtha means eyes. So here it is a symptom that a patient have a very bulging eyes. So this is why it has been named exophthalmic goiter. All right. Okay. So that's about the adrenal gland. Next, we are going to talk about parathyroid gland. Now, as you know, parathyroid gland is yellow in color, and it has 4 lobes, and it is present on the thyroid gland. Present on thyroid gland. So, what's the hormone secreted by this parathyroid gland? The name of the hormone is PTH, which is parathyroid hormone. Very simple to learn, right? The hormone is parathyroid hormone. Sometimes it is also known as parathormone. It is also known as parathormone. Okay, okay, let me drink some water. All right. So it is working opposite to calcitonin. Calcitonin, if you remember, it was decreasing the blood calcium. This one increases the blood calcium and phosphate. So that's why this is known as hypercalcemic hormone. All right. Now, how does calcitonin and PTH helps in calcium homeostasis or regulation? Let's see. How do they function? For example, you have high blood calcium level. Right now, imagine any person have high blood calcium level. Now, this will stimulate your parafollicular cells of thyroid gland, and parafollicular cells of thyroid gland will secrete the hormone calcitonin. Now, what does calcitonin do? It will causes mineralization of bones. Mineralization of bones. What does it means? What does it means? For example, if this is a bone and this is the blood, and as you know, the level of calcium in the blood has been increased. Now, what does it do? It will keep on pasting this calcium and phosphate both in the or on the bone, and then the bone will be having great growth. Okay. Now, as a result, what will happen? All the calcium will go to the bone and the blood calcium decreases. Imagine the blood calcium decreases more. Now, what will happen? What will be stimulated? Parathyroid hormone will come. Parathyroid hormone's function is to increase the blood calcium, but how does it will do? First of all, it will cause the opposite thing. It will cause the demineralization of bone. That means it will take away the calcium from the bones. For example, if this is a bone and this is your blood vessel, it will take the calcium from the bone and send it to the blood, both the calcium and phosphate. Okay. Second thing, what it will do, it will increase the activation of vitamin D. It will lead to the activation of vitamin D. Why vitamin D? Because if vitamin D is more in your body, then it can cause the absorption of calcium ion from your gut, right? So it also does a function, that is absorption of calcium ion from gut. Let me tell you how. So for example, this is your gut and you drank milk. We say that milk is incomplete. You will not get the nutrition from the milk or calcium from the milk if you do not have sufficient vitamin D, right? And this is your blood vessel. And everything that get absorbed, or every nutrient that get absorbed, it enter into your blood. Now here, vitamin D is the one that will help in the absorption of calcium ion under the influence of PTH. Right? So PTH will lead to activation of vitamin D, and PTH will also tell the calcium to increase more reabsorption, and hence everything that gets absorbed, it enters into your blood vessel. Next thing, if in the filtrate you have calcium ions, you will take it back and put it into the blood. That is reabsorption of calcium ion from nephron. Okay, and this all will do one thing. It will increase the blood calcium level. All these things will increase the blood calcium level, and this is how PTH is hypercalcemic, and this is how the entire calcium is regulated. You call it as calcium homeostasis. Homeostasis means regulation. Okay, all right guys, so this is how calcium is regulated. Moving further to the next one, that is your thymus gland. So thymus is also a very little gland, and it is present, let's see its location. It's present between the lungs. Imagine these are two lungs, and it is present in between the lungs. Okay, behind the sternum, imagine the sternum is present here. Imagine the sternum is present here, and it is present behind the sternum. And on the ventral side of the aorta, imagine here, if it is present behind the sternum, and we also have behind the sternum a blood vessel. Okay, all right, let me show you. For example, this is your thymus, and here you have aorta. Okay, this is aorta. All right, let me draw it again. Imagine this is your blood vessel aorta. This is your aorta. Okay, that side is the back side. This is the front side. Imagine this is me and this is my aorta. Okay, so this is a ventral side of the aorta. On the ventral side of aorta is present thymus gland in between two lungs and behind the sternum. And imagine this is the sternum. This is the exact location of your thymus gland. Okay, all right. Now, it secretes a hormone known as thymosin. First of all, your thymus gland, it is also a primary lymphoid organ. It is also a primary lymphoid organ, and it is also known as school or throne of immunity. Why? Let's see. Okay. So now what happened? The cells of thymus secretes the hormone thymosin. Now what happened next? So in the thymus gland, imagine this is a thymus gland. Two types of cells are developing. One is B cell, another is T cell. So this thymosin will bind to this B cell as well as T cell. It will cause T cells differentiation and maturation. It will ask the T cell to get mature to see what your enemies are. Imagine if we say antigen, or you can say micro presentation is done in the thymus. For example, this is T cell, this is microbe. So this gland will tell the T cell, who is the developed, newly developed, see, this is how microbes look like. You have to kill this microbe wherever it is present in the body. So this is what is maturation of T cell is. Okay, but it also tells the B cell to get differentiated and divide. And divide or division. Why? Because when B cell divide, it forms two types of cell. One is a memory cell and another is a plasma cell. Okay, this plasma cell, it produces antibodies. It produces antibodies, and antibodies will kill the pathogen. It will kill the pathogen. So this type of immunity, where B cells are responsible for killing the pathogen, not directly, but by producing antibodies, you call it as humoral immunity. So we say the thymosin controls humoral immunity of your body. Humoral immunity is associated with B cell, where antibodies are formed, whereas T cell is the one which directly kills the pathogen. So the this immunity in which directly cells are killing the pathogen, unlike that of B cell, you call it as cell mediated immunity. You call it as cell mediated immunity. So in cell mediated immunity, cells directly kills the pathogen. Kills the pathogen. So this type of a gland is more related with your immunity. Okay, so if I talk about the thymus gland, it is highly developed, or we can say, let's talk about less developed first. It is less developed in newborn baby, and in old age, whereas it is highly developed during your teenagers and up to some 20s of your life. Later on, after that, the thymus, it degenerates. So that's why older people have less immunity, because thymus gland is later on getting destroyed, or its cells are getting destroyed. So only some sand like structure gets left in your old age. So it's a kind of a mechanism of the nature to eliminate the organisms from earth. If with age immunity gets low, the pathogens will attack and they will kill you. All right. Okay. So that's about the thymus gland, guys. Let's do some question. A pregnant female delivers a baby who suffers from stunted growth, mental retardation, low intelligence quotient, and abnormal skin. This is a result of pregnant lady. IQ and everything is low. Body physiology is very bad. Anatomy is bad. That means there is a low secretion of maybe the thyroxine hormone. That means the female is not having proper iodine in her diet, causing hypothyroidism. Okay, so that's a kind of a tricky question. They have not explained, or they have not written thyroxine's concentration. Rather, they have mentioned iodine. So answer is 4. Okay, next. If there is low secretion of growth hormone, that would be dwarfism. Okay, cancer of thyroid gland, that is hyperthyroidism. Over secretion of pars distalis. Pars distalis is a part of anterior pituitary that can cause disturbance in all the hormones. Next. Graves' disease is caused due to, Graves is exophthalmic goiter, and that occurs due to hypersecretion of thyroid gland. Next. Which one of the following pairs of chemical substances is correctly categorized? Calcitonin and thymus in thyroid gland? No. Thymus is the one that secretes thymosin. Pepsin and prolactin, two digestive enzymes secreted in stomach, not the prolactin, renin. Prolactin is a hormone secreted by anterior pituitary. Troponin and myosin, complex protein in the striated muscle. Secretin and rhodopsin, polypeptide hormone. Rhodopsin is present in the rods. So this one is absolutely correct. We have already done it in the skeletal muscle, and that's 3. Okay, next. The plasma calcium level is very effectively maintained by a balance between the activity of, okay, calcium level. Simple question. Who maintain calcium level? 2 hormone. One is calcitonin, another PTH. Thyroxine and parathormone, no. Calcitonin and parathormone, these we have not even studied yet, and these also we have not studied yet. So answer simply is 2. Okay, next. Which of the following symptoms pertain to Addison's disease? All right, so that's a question from the next gland. So let's leave this. Which of the following statement is incorrect with respect to melatonin hormone? Show diurnal variation, antigonadal hormones secreted by pineal body synthesized from tyrosine amino acid. So tyrosine amino acid is the one that produces thyroxine, not the melatonin. Melatonin is secreted by tryptophan. I have told you that's also amino acid derivative. What amino acid? Tryptophan. Yes, it shows diurnal variation. It also secreted by pineal body. Pineal gland is present in this form. This is a pineal body and this is pineal stalk. Okay, this is a tricky question, the difficult one. I have brought this to give you an extra knowledge. Okay, antigonadal. So if a person have more melatonin in the days of growth, or for example, if a young boy and girl who have not attained puberty, if their melatonin hormone is more, maybe that can delay the puberty because it has antigonadal function. That means it will go to gonad and it will not allow the secretion of the gonado, these hormones like testosterone and estrogen. So antigonadal hormone, it will inhibit the gonads and it will not allow its growth. All right, okay. Next, exophthalmic goiter is caused by another question, that was Graves' disease. This is the another name, due to hyperthyroidism, not parathyroidism. Hyperparathyroidism. What if hyperparathyroidism occur? There will be more PTH. More PTH, there will be more blood calcium. It will be more blood calcium. What if hypoparathyroidism occur? There will be less PTH. There will be less blood calcium. If the calcium in the body fluids is less, that causes tetany, rapid spasm of muscle, and here you call it as parathyroid tetany. If you remember in locomotion and movement, I have taught you the tetany. Tetany is when there is low blood fluid calcium, or we can say calcium level is low in the body fluids. That causes rapid spasm of muscle. So the reason here is low PTH. Okay. All right. Next. The non-ionized hormone secreted by parafollicular cell of thyroid is very simple, calcitonin. Straightforward question. Next, guys, which hormone has a calorigenic effect in the body? Adrenaline, FSH, growth hormone, thyroxine. Calorigenic effect means it will increase the BMR, which will lead to increase in, we can say, metabolism. There will be more burning of nutrients. Burning of nutrients. If the nutrients burn, there will be more calories they will be burned. And there will be more heat. This is what calorigenic effect is, and that is the function of thyroxine. Okay, all right. Next we are going to talk about the adrenal gland. Adrenal. What does adrenal gland means? Let's get started. So now let's talk about adrenal gland. So what is adrenal gland? Adrenal. Ad means above. It's present above kidneys. It is present above kidneys, also known as suprarenal gland. Supra again means above kidneys, right? Because this is present above kidneys. It is also known as gland of emergency. Also known as gland of emergency. So this gland has two areas. The outer area is the cortex and inner area is the medulla. So in this diagram, it looks like the medulla is a major portion, but no, medulla is just around 75%, whereas around 25% is cortex. 25% is cortex and 75% is medulla. The medulla is ectodermal in origin and the cortex is mesodermal in origin. So let's first talk about adrenal cortex. So Imagine this is your adrenal gland. It is triangular in shape, as you can see. It has three layers. The outermost layer is zona glomerulosa. All right, first let's make the medulla part. This is medulla. Okay. So the outermost layer, which I'm drawing in the pink, is zona glomerulosa. This one. Right. Then we have a very thick layer of fasciculata. This is the thickest layer, fasciculata. And then the very thin layer, this is reticularis. So the adrenal cortex is divided into three zones or three areas. The outermost one is zona glomerulosa. This one is zona fasciculata. And the innermost, the one I have drawn in the green, a very thin portion, this is zona reticularis. Alright. All these areas of adrenal cortex, they secrete the hormone known as corticoids. What do they secrete? Corticoids. So if I talk about the hormones of medulla and cortex, they're quite different. They're quite different. The hormones of cortex, they are known as corticoids. Corticoids are steroid in nature. They are what? Steroid in nature. Whereas the hormones of adrenal medulla are different. They are amino acid derivative. Okay, let's see. So first of all, what does zona glomerulosa secrete? It secretes mineralocorticoids. It secretes mineralocorticoids. So one example we have of a mineralocorticoid is aldosterone. This one we have already discussed in the chapter excretory products and elimination. So what is the function of this aldosterone, which is a mineralocorticoid? It will go to the renal tubules and it will help in the reabsorption of sodium ions and water, and it will lead to the secretion of potassium ions and phosphatines in renal tubules. So which part of renal tubule? The distal tubule, especially the DCT, where conditional reabsorption takes place. Whereas if I talk about reticularis, it secretes sex corticoids. So sex corticoids, for example, we have like androgens. So you heard it right. You also have some other organ that secretes androgen, and that is your adrenal gland. So by this I can say that even females produce androgen. Even female produces androgen. Fine guys. So what's the function of these androgen? What are the functions of this androgen? All right. Give me a second. All right. So what is the function of this androgen? It will lead to the control of secondary sexual characters. And what is that one character that it controls? Hair on the body. So whenever a person hit puberty, even it's a male or female, they get certain patterns or different patterns of hair. Like hair in the armpits, pubic region, or in the genital region, it starts to grow in both male and female. Whereas in males, the hair on the chest, they start to appear, right? So that hair growth is the function of these androgen. So if in any female the level of these androgen increases, that female may have the hair on the face, because that is the character of a male. Male have beard, females do not have, right? All right, zona fasciculata secretes glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids, example cortisol. Though there are number of mineralocorticoids, there are number of glucocorticoids, but you know there are certain which are higher in amount. So just like that, cortisol is higher in amount. So let's talk about the functions of glucocorticoid. First of all, it will undergo, or it will help in gluconeogenesis. What is gluconeogenesis? Formation of glucose. Formation of glucose from fat or protein or lactic acid. Alright. So it will also cause lipolysis, that means breakdown of lipid, and proteolysis, that is breakdown of proteins. Because when they will break down, they can be converted into glucose via process known as gluconeogenesis. And all this will lead to increase in blood sugar. So yes, just like that of growth hormone, it can also increase your blood sugar. Then it inhibits cellular uptake and utilization of amino acids. So it will not allow cells to take up the amino acid because they want that amino acid should be converted into glucose, right? Now, what are the functions particularly of cortisol? Cortisol will perform all these functions for sure, but there are also certain other functions of cortisol, like it will control your cardiovascular and kidney function. So if you have higher amount of cortisol, this may affect your heart as well as kidney. Okay, then anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressant. So this will suppress any inflammation if you have in your body, and in a way we can say it reduces your immune response. It is like an immunosuppressant. So this one is also given during kidney transplant, because whenever we are transplanting kidney, there are chances that it got rejected by recipient's immune system. For example, if I'm a recipient, if I'm taking someone's kidney, there is a possibility my immune system will recognize it as foreign and then it will reject it. So what we do, we suppress the immune system by giving cortisol. Then we have, it also helps in erythropoiesis. What is erythropoiesis? It helps in formation of red blood cells. Fine. Now, one more question that I would like to ask. If this mineralocorticoid is leading to the reabsorption of sodium ions and water, will it be maintaining electrolyte balance or body fluid volume? Absolutely yes. So, in a way, this is maintaining blood volume and electrolyte balance balance. Fine. So this is about the adrenal cortex. Let's talk about the adrenal medulla. So adrenal medulla is the one which is basically known as the gland of emergency. Okay. Because this adrenal medulla, it secretes hormones, and the hormones name are adrenaline, also known as epinephrine, and second hormone is noradrenaline or norepinephrine. There are two hormones secreted, but their effect and function are same. These both are tyrosine derivative. What is tyrosine, guys? Amino acid. These both are tyrosine derivative. Now they are not secreted in a normal conditions. For example, right now might be the glucocorticoid will be secreted in your body, but this will, or I can also say not even the glucocorticoid is secreted all the time, but yeah, as comparison to this one, glucocorticoid can be secreted in some part of the day, right? But this one is secreted only when you have a response which name is flight or fight response. Now what is a flight and fight response? Flight and fight response is a response whenever you are in fear. For example, you saw a snake. At that time, your brain will decide whether to go flight, that means go away, or whether to fight with the snake. So, for example, you have a mad dog running behind you. At that time, you are running. What response is going on? Emergency response, that is a flight and fight response. Fine. These two hormones, they are collectively also known as catecholamines because they are made up of amino acids, right? Or emergency hormones. They are also known as emergency hormones. Now, what happens when you have a mad dog behind you and you are running? Now, what will these adrenaline or how does these adrenaline hormones, they will be secreted? For example, this is your adrenal gland and this is your adrenal medulla. And this is the hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is under, or the medulla is under the neuronal control of hypothalamus. These are neurons. Okay. Now, hypothalamus will judge the situation. For example, hypothalamus has judged that this is the emergency situation and it will send the impulse via neuron to the medulla, and medulla will secrete hormones. It will secrete hormones. Why this hormone is secreted? For that, we need to know the functions. Let's see. So, first function is These hormones, they will increase alertness, pupil dilation, piloerection and sweating. So for example, you're running, at that time you're alert, you know the dog is behind you. You'll also sweat and you will have a piloerection. That means your goosebumps will be there, your hairs will get erect. Pupillary dilation, the pupils will be dilated, they will expand, the pupil size will increase so that more light will come, more image, clear image can be formed. Both the hormones increase the heartbeat, the strength of heart contraction and the rate of respiration. Because you are running, what will happen? Your heart rate will increase. Okay. Catecholamines also stimulate the breakdown of glycogen, resulting in an increased concentration of glucose in blood. So this is the third hormone that increases blood sugar. So which are the hormones increases blood sugar, guys? First, growth hormone. Second, cortisol. Third, adrenal medulla hormones, epinephrine, norepinephrine. In addition, they can also stimulate the breakdown of lipids and protein. Again, if they will break down, they will give you more energy. And at this point of emergency, you need more energy. All right. Now let's talk about the disorders. Let's talk about the disorders. So one disorder that we are going to discuss first is Addison's disease. So in Addison's disease, somehow the adrenal cortex got destroyed. Maybe a person got tuberculosis, TB. Though you always relate TB with the pulmonary TB that affects lungs, but TB can also destroy other body tissues. So imagine in Addison's disease, a patient got tuberculosis and his or hers adrenal cortex got damaged. So if adrenal cortex got damaged, the mineralo and glucocorticoid, they will be in lower amount. Now what happened? If mineralocorticoid is in lower amount, there will be more potassium ion in blood. The skin will be bronze-like, there will be bronze pigmentation. There will be bronze pigmentation. That means like a brown color patches will appear on the skin. And a person is having more potassium ion, the more toxicity will be there. And a person is not able to walk properly. Okay. And second disease is Cushing syndrome. In Cushing syndrome, the level of glucocorticoids increase. If the level of glucocorticoids increase, what will happen? There will be more blood sugar. There will be more blood sugar. What else will occur? Then there will be low immune response in this case. Okay. So these are the two disorders associated with this adrenal gland. All right. So we'll be solving the question based on this. But first, let's discuss about pancreas. So pancreas is also the part of your digestive system, and it is also an endocrine gland. So you call it as a heterocrine gland. What do you call it as? Heterocrine or composite gland. What is a heterocrine or composite gland? Heterocrine or composite gland is a gland which have two portions or both the portion, one with the duct, another without the duct. So it has a ductless portion, which is the endocrine portion, and the exocrine portion have ducts. So the exocrine portion's name is achini, which constitute around 99% part of your pancreas. And this one, because hormones are secreted by endocrine glands, and we don't want hormones in high amount. So this portion is only 1%. Its name is islets of Langerhans. Islets of Langerhans, just 1%. If we see 1 to 2 million are the islets of Langerhans, and that is still again the 1%. See how many achini will be there, right? What's the location of pancreas? As you can see in this diagram, this is duodenum. Okay, this is liver. So pancreas is present just right here. Pancreas is present below the stomach. Okay, all right. So how does this achini they look like? So if we'll take a section of pancreas, you will see these flowers. You will see these flowers. These flower-shaped structures, they are echini. They are much in number. They are many in number, not much. Sometimes my English goes really very bad. So they are many in number, and in between them you have islets of Langerhans, which are formed by the collection of number of cell. Collection of like 3 types of cells. Okay. So what are these 3 types? Let's see. So first type is this one, which are alpha cells. Which are alpha cells. Alpha cells secrete a hormone, and the name of the hormone is glucagon. Okay. Glucagon, it increases blood sugar. It increases blood sugar, and that is how you call it as hyperglycemic. So just like the calcium was increased by PTH and you call it as hypercalcemic, calcitonin was decreasing calcium, you call it as hypocalcemic. Calci word for calcium, hypo for low, hyper for more. Just like that, here we have beta cells. Which cells? Beta cells. Beta cells secrete the hormone insulin. Insulin reduces blood glucose levels. Alright? It reduces blood glucose. So here what sugar I'm talking about? Do not get confused. I'm talking about glucose, guys, right? Because that's the only sugar that gets metabolized in your body, right? Glycolysis. Now, this one is hypoglycemic. Now, how do they function? How are they hyperglycemic? How are they increasing or decreasing the blood sugar? Let's do that in the difference form. So here you can see, guys, this one is for glucagon and this one is for insulin. Now, what do these hormones what are the functions that are performed by these hormones? How are they increasing or decreasing the blood sugar? First, glucose acts mainly on the liver cells. What are liver cell? Hepatocyte. Hepato word is always used for liver. They act on hepatocyte and stimulate glycogenolysis. What is glycogenolysis? Breakdown of glycogen into glucose. Now this glucose can easily go inside the blood and it can increase the blood sugar. Next, resulting in increased blood sugar, and hence you call it as hyperglycemic. In addition, this hormone stimulate the process of gluconeogenesis, which also contribute to hyperglycemia. Just like glucocorticoid, it can also undergo gluconeogenesis. Glucagon reduces the cellular glucose uptake and utilization. Also, it will not allow the cells to eat the glucose, because if cell will take the glucose, the blood glucose level will drop, but it wants to increase the blood sugar level. Like this is the blood. Okay. And what does it do? It increases blood glucose. It increases blood glucose. How? First, in the liver, it will ask the glycogen store to get converted into glucose, and that will become the part of the blood. Second, also in glucose, in the liver, it will ask the liver to perform gluconeogenesis, which will also increase the blood glucose, right? It will also not allow the cells to take up the glucose, and now glucose will become the part of blood. This is how it functions. Second is insulin. So insulin is working opposite. So it will do the things that this one is not doing. So it will do the reverse. What insulin will do? It will ask the glucose to go into the cells, and it will also ask the glucose to go into the liver cell and become glycogen, right? So let's see. So insulin acts mainly on hepatocyte and adipocyte. Adipocytes are cells of the adipose tissue, and it will ask the glucose to get converted into fat and enhances cellular glucose uptake and utilization. It also do the opposite. It will tell these cells to take the glucose. As a result, there is a rapid movement of glucose from blood to hepatocyte and adipocyte, resulting in decreased blood glucose levels. Insulin also stimulates the conversion of glucose into the glycogen, known as glycogenesis. Genesis means synthesis, formation. Lysis means breakdown. Lysis means breakdown. So we are breaking what? Glycogen. Glycogenesis. What we are forming what? glycogen from glucose. Okay, this is how both function. And what is a disorder associated with the insulin? And the name of the disorder that we have studied so far is diabetes. Diabetes mellitus. So we have already discussed this in excretion. So I will not be discussing this in more detail here. Okay, now your homework is to go back to the excretion part and study this. All right, guys. Let's move further and talk about the another heterocrine gland, that is testes. Heterocrine. Again, why they're heterocrine? One portion they have is exocrine, other they have endocrine. Endocrine will form the hormones. Exocrine will form the gametes. Now, we say exocrine portion have ducts. It's true. Don't we have ducts? Male have vast difference from where the gamete moves out. Females have fallopian tube. From there the gametes move out. Okay. So that's why they are also heterocrine. Now, what are the hormones produced by these cells? Let's see. So, if we'll take the section of testes, there are these structures present. The name of the structure are seminiferous tubule. What is the name of the structure? Seminiferous tubule. These tubules, they are lined by this cuboidal epithelium, which will form sperms. These cells are the cells of germinal epithelium. Okay, so these are the cells of germinal epithelium. Now, in between these cells are present tall cells, which are Sertoli cells. What are these cells? Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells are the cells that helps in spermatogenesis, and they secrete a hormone known as inhibin. And inhibin is the one that inhibits spermatogenesis. For example, somehow the amount of sperm increases here. The Sertoli cell will detect it and it will secrete inhibin so that more formation of sperm should stop, right? Okay. Another point here. Let me just delete this one. Okay. Now, in between the seminiferous tubule are present certain cells known as Leydig cells. Leydig cells are also known as interstitial cell, and they secrete the hormone, and the name of the hormone is testosterone, and it's a kind of steroid. Okay, so we have so far discussed that corticoids are also steroid. What are steroids? They are a special form of lipids. We'll be discussing about them in the biomolecules chapter, the most awaited chapter. Okay, all right. So they are also steroid, they're also lipid-like, and they're commonly known as androgens. Now, what's the function of these androgen in a male's body? Let's see. Androgen regulate the development, maturation and function of male accessory sex organ like epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate gland, urethra. Whatever a male reproductive system is, every part's development is dependent upon the male hormone, that is testosterone. These hormones stimulate muscular growth of facial and axillary hair, aggressiveness, low pitch of voice. So this hormone is responsible for all the secondary sexual character plus muscle growth. Male have, the larger muscles, the strongest muscle. Why? Because they have testosterone. Also, they have facial hair. They are aggressive more than females. Whenever you'll see there is a fight, always males are responsible for that. Low pitch voice. Okay. Androgen play a major stimulatory role in the process of spermatogenesis. They also help in spermatogenesis, that is formation of spermatozoa, also known as sperm. Androgen act on the CNS and influence the male sexual behavior known as libido. That sexual act, it comes with the desire, and for that what is responsible? Your brain. And brain is stimulated by this hormone known as testosterone. These hormones produce anabolic synthetic effects on protein and carbohydrate metabolism. So anabolic means synthesis. That means it will not destroy things, rather it will form the things, so that it will lead to the formation of more greater structures and healthy muscle. If a protein is not broken down, that means they will become the part of muscle and muscle will be more stronger, right? So these are the all effects of the testosterone. Let's talk about us girls. So it's also heterocrine, ovaries in the female. One part is exocrine, another is endocrine. Okay, exocrine produces gametes, endocrine produces hormones. As you all know, ovaries, they are one pair and they're present in abdomen. But if I talk about the testes, how many testes does a male have? How many testes does a male have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Ma'am, no. 2, one pair. So testes is also one pair. But unlike that of female, they are present in scrotum, which is present outside the abdomen. The testes are never present in the abdomen, they are present outside the abdomen. Why? Because they cannot bear that temperature, high temperature. The temperature outside the abdomen is lower, and lower temperature is needed for spermatogenesis. So one pair present outside the abdomen. In the scrotum. Okay, all right. All right. Let's get to ovaries. So now, ovaries, it produces two hormones. Okay, let's have a recap. I've told you there is a small cell known as oocyte, which is surrounded by a number of follicular cell, and you call it as ovarian follicle. Right? Now this ovarian follicle, under the influence of FSH, this got mature and it becomes a mature follicle. It becomes a mature follicle, larger in size, known as Graafian follicle. This Graafian follicle or the mature follicle is the source of first hormone in female, the main female hormone, that is estrogen. So this one secretes estrogen. Now, this follicle's fate is that it will undergo ovulation or it will rupture under the influence of LH, and the rest of the part will become corpus luteum. This corpus luteum is yellow in color. This is endocrine and it secretes another hormone, that is progesterone. That is progesterone. Fine. Now these are the two main female hormones. Male have only one. Even inhibin is secreted by cell in female. Inhibin is also secreted by the corpus luteum. Okay. So female is more complicated, as we say, as in fact man says. Male population says, yes, we are. Why? Because our hormones are complicated. They made us complicated. It's not us, right? Okay. So let's see how are we complicated. First of all, let's talk about estrogen. Estrogen produce wide-ranging actions such as stimulation of growth and activity of female secondary sex characters. So of children, female child is different from the teen child, because the teen child have hit the puberty and secondary sexual characters have been formed under the influence of hormone estrogen. Now what are these? How she is different? First of all, she has breast, she has high pitch voice. All these changes that occur in a female after puberty are secondary sexual character, right? So like development of the ovarian follicle will start, appearance of female secondary sexual character like high pitch voice, mammary glands development. Estrogen also regulate female sexual behavior. Like in male, testosterone controls the libido. In female, estrogen regulates the libido. Progesterone is the one that supports pregnancy. So if someone say what is the main pregnancy hormone, you will say progesterone. Why? Let's see. Progesterone act on the mammary gland and stimulate the formation of alveoli and milk secretion. Also, progesterone maintain endometrium. Endometrium. You know what is endometrium? It is the lining of uterus. So when a female got her periods, her uterine lining falls off. But if she got pregnant, that lining will be maintained by progesterone. Why? Because in that lining, the embryo will get embedded and it will form placenta, the barrier between mother and fetus, and also it helps in transport of substances. So this is the one that will not allow this endometrium lining to fall off. So that's why main pregnancy hormone. Also it develops alveoli. What are alveoli? They are the glandular portion. They are the glandular portion of mammary glands which secretes milk. So they lead to the development of this portion. Okay. So if someone asks you alveoli is developed under the influence of estrogen or progesterone, you will say progesterone. So that's the reason why milk is produced in a pregnant lady. Why? Because in a pregnant lady, more progesterone will be there. It will also develop the alveoli, and hence the mammary glands will be ready for milk secretion. All right, so that's about the ovaries. Let's talk about this question. Prolonged hyperglycemia. What is hyperglycemia? Increase in blood sugar or blood glucose. Lead to complex disorder, not insipidus. This is due to ADH. Yes, diabetes mellitus. Addison is due to corticoids. Next. Which of the following is not the function of cortisol? Yes, erythropoiesis is a function. It helps in RBC synthesis. In fact, thyroxine also helps in erythropoiesis. Then we have anti-inflammatory effect. Electrolyte balance is the function of mineralocorticoid. And answer is 3. Next. And cortisol is a glucocorticoid. After ovulation, the ruptured follicle is converted to a structure called corpus luteum, which secretes mainly progesterone. Very simple. Estrogen comes from follicles. LHFSH from anterior pituitary. Okay? All right. Which of the following is not a composite gland? What is a composite gland? The gland which are both exocrine and endocrine portion. Testes is, pancreas is, ovaries is, but this is the complete endocrine. So answer is 4th. Next, guys. Which of the following symptom pertains to Addison disease? All right. So if someone has Addison, that means the person do not have mineraloin glucocorticoid. Low plasma sodium, high plasma potassium, increased urinary sodium, low blood sugar, vomiting, nausea and diarrhea. All these are the symptoms of Addison. It's low. Low blood sugar, obesity, wasting of lung muscle, fall in plasma, K positive, no. When you do not have aldosterone, K positive will be more in plasma, whereas Na positive will go out in the urine. So this is wrong. Stunted growth, retarded sexual development, mental backward is for thyroxine. Increase in heart rate, rise in blood pressure, nervousness, bulging eyes, and warm skin. These all are for exophthalmic goiter. All right, exophthalmic goiter have one symptom, that is bulging eye. That's why its name is exophthalmic goiter. Exo means outside, ophtha means eyes. All right, next. Next, we are going to talk about hormones secreted by heart. This is just a revision because we have done the hormones secreted by the heart. Now, what's that? ANF. We have done this in excretion, so it's kind of a revision. ANF is secreted by the walls of atria, and it get released or secreted in response to high blood pressure. So whenever you have high blood pressure, ANF will be secreted from walls of the atria of heart, and this will causes vasodilation, which will reduces the blood pressure because the blood pressure was increased. This is what regulation is. Also, it will inhibit the RAS and ADH. If the ADH is inhibited, there will be more water loss. That means there will be more diuresis. Dilute urine will be formed. All right. Okay. Next hormone, let's talk about the hormones of kidney. Kidney hormone? Yeah. So JG cells or the juxtaglomerular cells. We have done the juxtaglomerular cells in the excretory system chapter, and these cells secrete one, renin with a single N, and second, erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is the one which increases erythropoiesis. What is erythropoiesis? Formation of RBCs, right? So in males, there is more testosterone. Testosterone leads to the more formation of this erythropoietin. That's why male have more RBC than females. Second thing, If a kidney is damaged, a person can also undergo anemia because the erythropoietin will not be there. It is secreted by kidney and person will face anemia. Okay, all right. So, most of you get confused. If the kidney got damaged, both the kidneys, then what will happen to a person? Definitely, the blood will not be filtered. Urea will increase. Apart from that, two things we have done in this chapter. Vitamin D will not be activated. Vitamin D is always activated in kidney. Vitamin D is always activated in kidney. Okay. Vitamin D is activated in kidney. So vitamin D will also not be there. And second, erythropoietin will not be there. And anemia can occur to that patient. Okay. All right. Next. Now, hormones of gut, your gastrointestinal tract. Let's talk about them. First hormone is gastrin. Gaster means stomach. So this hormone is secreted by G cells of stomach and it will allow more formation of gastric juice. So it will stimulate gastric secretion and motility so that more stomach will be motile, more muscle contraction will be there and more churning of food should be there. Then churning, in fact, the mixing of food with the gastric contents should be there. Next we have GIP. Its name suggests gastric inhibitory peptide. It is secreted by duodenum and it will inhibit what the gastrin was doing, gastric secretion and motility. Third hormone we have is secretin. This was the first hormone to be discovered. This is also secreted by duodenum. It performs number of functions. First, its target cell is pancreas. Its second target cell is liver. The secretin will go to the liver and ask the liver to produce more bile. So if someone asks you who stimulates the production of bile, you will say secretin. It also goes to pancreas and asks this to produce a lot of water and bicarbonate. Okay. Next we have hormone CCK, cholecystokinin. Again it is from duodenum and the function is it will also stimulate the pancreatic secretion and it will also go to cystic duct. What is a cystic duct? If you remember the duct of gallbladder. This is a gallbladder duct. So the bile is stored and concentrated in gallbladder. So CCK will bind to this duct, causes its contraction and bile will be released. Who secrete bile? Liver under the influence of secretin. Who release the bile? CCK from cystic duct by contracting cystic duct. Okay. All right. C for cystic duct, C for cholecystokinin. This is how you can relate. All right, guys. So that's the hormones of your GIT. Let's talk about classification of hormones. Now, chemically, we have divided our hormones. We have divided our hormones. So if we see chemically, we have divided our hormones into these four categories. First is protein or peptide hormones, which are made up of proteins. Okay, they are made up of proteins. For example, LH, FSH, all your hypothalamic hormones. All your hypothalamic hormones. Like also your PTH, calcitonin, thymosin. All these are hormones that either they are made up of protein or the peptide chains. Then we have amino acid derivatives like which are made up of amino acid like your melatonin, your epinephrine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine. Then we have hormone which are steroid hormones and these steroid hormones are like your corticoids, whether it's mineral or glucose sex corticoids. We have estrogen, we have progesterone and in the male we have testosterone. Okay, and iodinated we have thyroxine. Now, because they have been chemically differentiated, so there are certain there are certain categories which are friends with lipids We call them as lipid soluble hormones. So steroid or iodinated, these are lipid soluble hormones. These are what? Lipid soluble hormones. Because iodinated hormones are lipid soluble, that's why iodine helps them to move across the cells, right? Because they're lipid soluble and cell's outer wall is made up of lipid. So because it is lipid soluble, that's why it can easily cross, right? Steroids, they're already made up of lipids, so they are friends with lipids. Whereas these two are lipid insoluble hormones. Lipid insoluble hormones. Now, on the basis of their chemical nature, the function, how do they perform function, that's quite different. For example, if I say I have lipid soluble hormone on one side and then I have lipid insoluble hormone. Okay, so whenever a hormone has to act on its target cell, imagine this is a target cell of lipid insoluble hormone and this is a target cell of lipid soluble hormone. So whenever the hormone has to go to the target cell, first of all it has to meet its receptor. Receptors are what? These are nothing, they're certain proteins. First of all, whenever the hormone has to enter into the target cell or it has to function on the target cell, it have to bind with its receptor. Only then the function will start. So here, because this is lipid soluble hormone, it can easily cross the lipid membrane. Its receptor will always be present inside the cell. And you call these receptors as intracellular receptors. Because this is lipid soluble, so its receptors will be present inside the cell, known as intracellular receptors. And these receptors can either be present in the cytoplasm, so you call them as cytoplasmic, or they can also be present in the nucleus, so they are nuclear as well. But mostly intracellular receptors are of the category of nuclear receptor because they're present in the nucleus. Now, here the hormone cannot go inside the cell because it is lipid insoluble. So it has to bind to its receptor protein, which is extracellular, that is present outside the cell, or sometimes it is also embedded in the plasma membrane. You call it as membrane bound receptor. What do you call it as? Membrane bound receptor. Okay, so because they have different kinds of receptor and that's due to their chemical nature, because they are lipid soluble or insoluble, so the mechanism of action is also different. Let's see how. First of all, we are going to talk about lipid soluble hormones. All right, lipid insoluble first. Let's talk about lipid insoluble first. All right, okay, so I think it's better to start with lipid soluble one because that is quite simple. So what happened in the lipid soluble one? What are the example? Like your steroid hormones, like your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, or we can say your corticoids. So these are the hormones, they can easily pass through the cell membrane. Imagine this is a uterus and this is uterine cell membrane and this hormone is estrogen. One function of estrogen that it causes the growth of uterine wall. What's the claim? The claim is estrogen causes growth of uterus, okay, by cell division. How it will do? Because it is lipid soluble, its receptor will be present inside the cell, and where in the cell? In the nucleus. You can see these are the receptors. So these nuclear receptor will bind to the hormone. This green one is the hormone, and it will form hormone receptor complex. So inside the nucleus, hormone receptor complex will be formed. This will then bind to the genome or the DNA, and this will alter the function of DNA. How? It will change the chromosome function. It will change the gene expression. So what we say, generally there are certain transcriptor factors. You know what is transcription? Okay, if you don't know, let me tell you. DNA forms mRNA. This process is known as transcription. This process is known as transcription. Okay. mRNA forms protein and this process is known as translation. The transcription is started by binding of certain proteins to DNA, which will start the machinery. So these proteins are generally these hormone receptor complex. So when this hormone receptor complex bind to the DNA will form mRNA and that will form protein, and this is how you will get a tissue growth, because proteins are responsible for tissue growth. Okay, so in a way I can say, in short, the lipid soluble ones function by altering or by changing gene expression or chromosome function. What is a gene expression? This entire is gene expression. This is how gene is expressing itself, by forming protein, okay, or chromosome function. Alright, so all lipid soluble function in this manner. Let's talk about the lipid insoluble. Now, lipid insoluble have a problem. They cannot go inside the cell. Now, what they will do? So, they will bind to the receptors. They will bind to the receptor present on the membrane. And just like that lipid soluble, if they'll bind to the membrane receptors, the hormone receptor complex will be formed. Hormone receptor complex will be formed. Now, because here, you cannot directly do a thing. So you want others to do a thing. For example, you are sitting in a class. How does lipid soluble works? For example, you're sitting in the class, I entered the class and I want to give information to, the one particular student, which is just sitting on the last table. Okay, I will go to that particular student and say to that student, and the information is done or said or transferred. But what if I'm lipid insoluble hormone? What I will do? I will knock on the gate, but I cannot enter. Now what will happen? The teacher which is already in the class will come and I will tell that teacher this is the information. Now that teacher will tell the information to the student who is sitting on the first bench. The first one will give it to second, second to the third, third to the fourth, and this is how the information will be sent to the last student. This information which is which is transporting in the form of one by after the one student is known as cascade of reaction. What you say? Cascade of reaction. That means one after the other. So similar thing happens here. For example, this is Diksha ma'am. Ma'am is the hormone. Ma'am is the messenger. Primary messenger, the one who knows the information. So here the primary messengers are your hormones, as we always say. Now, once they will attach to this, they will generate response element 1 like a teacher, okay. Now, the teacher will send information to the first student in the class. That's a second messenger. The second messenger can be cyclic AMP. AMP means adenosine monophosphate. It can be calciumine and it can be IP3 as well. Inositol triphosphate. Alright, so if someone asks you what are the second messenger, they are the messengers which will go inside the cell and start the cascade of reaction. They can be AMP, cyclic AMP, also written as CAMP, calciumine and IP3. Now they will start the response. Now the first stable child or student have started the response and give it to the other. So this is biochemical response, and then physiological response will be sent, which is that ovarian growth, because FSH causes ovarian follicular growth. Okay, this is how it is done, but it's for lipid insoluble. So lipid insoluble start this biochemical response. Also you call it as cascade of reaction. So this is how both the types of hormones they work, guys. Okay, so let's see, can you solve these questions or not? Which of the following is secreted by the wall of the heart? ADH, ANF, aldosterone, adrenaline. Very simple, ANF. Next. Which of the following stimulates the pancreatic secretion? CCK, secretin, gastrin, both 1 and 2. Very simple, both 1 and 2. CCK and secretin both lead to secretion of pancreas, whereas CCK causes contraction of cystic duct for the release of bile, and secretin production of bile. Gastrin, it has the function in stomach. Answer is 4. Now, hormones which interact with membrane bound receptor is estrogen, progesterone, thyroxine, adrenaline. So the hormone that binds to the membrane bound receptor must be lipid insoluble. All these are lipid soluble. This is lipid insoluble. Answer 4. Okay, next. All hormones are steroid hormones except this is steroid, cortisol is a corticoid, which is steroid, insulin is a peptide hormone. Answer 4. Next. Which of the following statement is incorrect? Several other non-endocrine tissues secrete hormones called growth factors essential for the normal growth of tissues and their repairing or regeneration. Second, juxtaglomerular cells of kidney produce a peptide hormone called erythropoietin, which stimulate erythropoiesis. Third, stunted growth. Okay, just delete this point. That's a typo error. All right, start it from here. Hormones which interact with extracellular receptors mostly regulate gene expression. Epinephrine is an amino acid derivative hormone. So we'll start from the lower one. Very true, it's amino acid derivative. It has been formed from tyrosine. Hormone which interact with extracellular, they do not regulate the gene expression. Which interact with intracellular, they regulate the gene expression. Juxtaglomerular cell, they too secrete erythropoietin. True. Now what about this? Apart from the main endocrine glands, there are certain tissues in your body that can also secrete growth factors, and these growth factors can cause repairing or regeneration of tissues. How? When? Where? Imagine this is your blood vessel. So when a blood vessel ruptures during blood clotting, you know, thromboplastin was released. So thromboplastin is one example of a growth factor. So this is absolutely right, right? So you know everything. You just need to process your brain and mind. All right. So answer to this question will be, guys, 3. Next. So next is a big thank you with pink color. So I'll meet you in the next class with another chapter. We are left with animal kingdom and biomolecules, I guess. I hope you have done each and every chapter very nicely. And if you must be wondering, ma'am, what about NCRT of this chapter? I have covered around 50% part of NCRT here. All the lines were from NCRT because, you know, this chapter, you don't have to do it from the, you know, extra part you don't have to do from this chapter. The only important thing is NCRT. Okay, so I'll meet you in the next class. If you will do all the question nicely, if you will study from the lecture, I don't think so any PYQs will be left. Okay, the only thing that you need to do is, yes, sit and concentrate, focus, and, you know, attend the entire lecture. So this is what I can say. So this was your zoology teacher, Diksha ma'am. So I'll meet you in the next class. Bye-bye. All the best. Lots of love.